let's talk about Bakhewa.
You get some kind of violent Bacchic ecstasy that takes things over.
Yeah, because it was an adjective to describe Dionysus in that sense.
And he's performing purgations with drugs. And these healings affect the person's soul.
The oracles will not be like just a crazy hippie in a cave doing drugs.
They were newborns when they were adopted, I'll call it adopted, by the oracles.
Everybody can experience this purgation. Is that what it means to be Bacchic?
So when we have pre-Socratic philosophers investigating the ultimate basis, the origin of the external world, the arche, the beginning, the arche in ancient Greek, of many things, the material principle that started the whole world, which was later said by other scientists that it was the Big Bang, right? Well, for pre-Socratic philosophers, it was other things. The arche, for example, for Thales, from Miletus, for him, it was water. Water that was the base of everything. For other ones was the air. Or we have later Heraclitus talking about fire as the origin of everything. Or Anaximander earlier for the unlimited, the apeiron, as the beginning of everything, which can be quite confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's amazing, Evina. I guess we can keep diving a bit more on this, and I will, because I have this, Ammon is writing to me, so if you don't mind, I would like to introduce you to...
Oh, that'd be a pleasure. And then we can talk about the Socratic leg of your question.
We can dive a bit in the pre-Socratic still, because it's a big one, and yeah, then we... So I will let him in. Doctor, you there? Well, I have to. Good, and you. I have to do the the audio thing. So I'll just. Here's Evina. This is Dr. Ammon Evina. I have talked to Ammon about you, and I've talked to you about Ammon a bit. Just a bit.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm not sure why you talked about me to Dr. Ammon. I mean, we know him. He's great in what he's doing, incredible work. And I know he's helped a lot in the podcast. And I mean, I feel we're all lucky to have you around.
Evina, please don't call me Dr. Ammon. Just call me Ammon. That sounds so funny. I'm glad to be able to meet you and to chat, and I'm looking forward. I want to probe your background too. Could you just let me know a little bit about where your strengths are and the things that really drive you, the things that you're really interested in?
Yeah, sure. Well, I studied classics, obviously, that's why I'm here, in Athens. And the reason why I studied classics was because I was always fascinated by the world of etymology on one leg, and on the other leg, by the world, the ancient world. And I've always wondered how life would be, and reading texts, original ones, even more. It makes you feel more connected to that world. So I was always fascinated by that. Then I drove away from that world and I studied linguistics. So a betray right?
A an errant philologist. What happened? You went into the no. That's beautiful. Do you have any favorite, ancient authors? Do you have a? Are you drawn to anybody in particular?
I have a soft spot for tragedies. Like I love it. Well, of course, I studied Homer from the original text. I love it, obviously. The language itself is so beautiful in the original form. But I really do like generally theater. So I'm really drawn into reading ancient texts. I always try to go and see the modern versions of tragedies. I find it very interesting. I don't know if you found yourself in any time in Epidaurus, Epidavros, called now, I have that struggle with the pronunciation. You probably understand me.
Yes, no, that's okay. That's okay. You know how it is. I went to graduate school with Tom and Kiki from they were Spartans. They're just pure up Spartans. But they it's the same thing. And I have to apologize a little bit because I really like to stress the fact that modern Greek does not have the coining capacity. People are not coining anymore on a daily basis, that the language is somehow shut off, like our English, where we are not functioning at that higher level that the Greek artists are functioning at. And I've always been fascinated by the transition to modern Greek. You, as a person who've been exposed to both, who've been in both of those arenas, do you find that the ancient Greek is challenging on a level that kind of reflects our own operating systems that are insufficient? Do you feel that way about Mother Greek, that she's just that much more profoundly powerful?
Um, well, that's a big thing to say. But well, as I said before to Bruno, um, I find it a bit sad that modern Greeks feel like ancient Greek is a completely different language. And there's been a lot of effort to change that view. That's why we've maintained actually, we use the modern Greek accent pronunciation to read ancient Greek. It is an effort, it's a last resort to maybe convince people that it's not a different language. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
no, no, and you're exactly right that it's not a different language. It is a language that has been dragged down from a height, and people have been fighting this ever since the Byzantine scholars came in and said, "Hey, we need to bring back that purity." Look what Galen did,
Katareu,
trying to bring back. I thoroughly, I am completely convinced that that seed of Mother Greek is still there, despite what has happened to modern Greek, despite the slowdown. I think, and the people have that core. If you can reform the language, if you can bring it back up to its purity, that is, take off all the restrictions that Catharavison enforces, and stop the simplification and bring back the language that causes its users to create vocabulary. And I would also say meter as well, music as well, because I think that's what the big deal about Sappho's new meter is, and because she's using the language. And I don't know, is that too? It sounds like I'm being harsh on modern Greek, but
no.
I think modern Greek could be elevated to its real, glorious form. I don't know. How are the modern Greeks now getting educated in Homer? Do the kids still have to take Homer in high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
it will really hurt you if I tell you that it's only from translated text, translated to modern Greek. Sorry. Um, and I have more bad news for you. So it's only 4 years, the obligatory education in ancient Greek. It starts in the beginning of secondary school. Sorry, there I'm using more British, my British past. So secondary school from the age of 12 until the age of 16 is the obligatory education on ancient Greek. So they learn the basics in grammar, some words in ancient Greek. They read very small extracts, mainly from historians, because it's easier to follow. And at the same time, they read tragedies or Homer from translation. And then at the age of 16, they have the choice there to choose the topics they want to do for the last 2 years of school. And that is where you decide if you're going to take the path of the future, science and computers, or the boring one, Greek. And I was one of the very few people at school, maybe among 9 students, that chose that path. Well, yeah,
Isn't that
that's the raw
gorgeous?
reality.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I ask just a little bit for ourselves here and for audience? Like at the beginning, Ammon, you used this word. I'm sure I'm not gonna pronounce it well, but it was like koine. What you meant? Because I guess I was talking with Evina before when she was talking to us about this. This ability to create words constantly in with ancient Greek. What you meant about this koine with something related with that, Ammon?
Yes, it is. Because as Evina will know, Greek has a history of rises and falls. There are periods when the language is very specifically oriented towards that formation of new vocabulary. And then there are low points where the language is becoming common and it is less interactive. The person is less able to create their own vocabulary. So you get standardization. And people have traditionally called that koine, right? And Venus linguistics will, this is all the laws of how the language works and everything. So
Okay.
she'll understand that
Thank you.
completely. But the problem is that when you drop from that higher elevated form that has a very advanced vocabulary to a lower form that is not as structurally flexible, you not only lose vocabulary and the ability to make it, but you lose a flexible grammar that allows you to do specific things that, they're like moves in gymnastics. It allows you to perform certain moves that you can't with a common a form of the language that's been kind of dumbed down. And in antiquity, they are fighting. Greek speakers from all over the place, all over the Mediterranean, are fighting over the purity, the power of that language. And they're led by people, second sophistics. They're led by people who are bringing, trying to elevate the language again. And that's what I think. When Evina talks about the people in Greece and what their desires are, and I know not a lot go down the track that you did to get back to the Mother Greek, but I studied with 2 of them at the University of Wisconsin through a PhD, and they are very well aware. Because of their exposure, their forced exposure, they're very well aware of this, how the language can drop and rise. And it's so confusing. Vina, let me ask you this. Have you noticed that seminaries, religious educations tend to create these fake worlds where when they bring you like Greek, for example, they'll tell you there's a difference between Koine Greek, which is just the common Greek, and the Attic Greek of Athens in the tragedies that you're so loving to read, right? You can put Aeschylus next to the New Testament, right? And you can just study the differences in the language. You can see what's happened to the flexibility. And for some reason, churches tend to perpetuate this by, I've had people come to me and say, but wait a minute, Koine is not ancient Greek or classical Greek. And it's just like, oh my God, people, what are you smoking? What is it? It just, I don't know. What is your linguistics
Absolutely
background?
right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if many people know that, but in a Greek church, yeah, everything that is heard nowadays in the Greek church is that koine, the language of the New Testament. It's ridiculous, in my opinion, because people still don't understand it. We've already talked about the disconnection of modern Greeks from ancient Greek language, but even later forms of it. So I find it ridiculous because most people go to church and they don't even understand what's happening.
Right. Right. Isn't that something? Isn't it something? Look, oh God, thank you for saying, oh, it's so good to get that perspective.
I I even need to make a whole syntax and everything in my head if I get to be in a place where this is read. Because, yeah, of course I studied that, but that doesn't mean that I'm not like, oh, that was the verb, so that was the subject, and that's what's going on in my mind. It's crazy. Imagine the average person that doesn't get any training in ancient Greek, because 4 years is nothing. What do you
Right.
learn? The conjugations of verbs and
Right.
the cases in nouns, nothing else.
Yeah. It's amazing that we can still open up, that we still have access to that font that it
Yeah.
is there. It's sitting there. And the spark that you have for those tragedies, like why is that when you get into the language and when you're being, oh God, it restructures your mind and the way that you think. It orders it.
The
I don't know.
syntax, the morphology itself. Let's not even get to the ideas that are transmitted from
Yeah,
these texts.
yeah.
Let's talk barely about anything else but the words.
Yes. And the
It's a different.
organization, the
I talked
organization
about
of
that, the order of words, for example, that is
yeah,
so different in ancient Greece. And now we all follow the same motive, like in English, subject, verb, object.
yeah,
And I was saying the example, I eat an apple, and that was
yeah,
I an apple
yeah,
eat
yeah,
back then every morning. So
yeah, yeah.
it's
We've
very
been
strange.
we've been barbarianized. We've been turned into those people who weren't speaking that melodious, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous Greek. And people don't understand, but just the use of particles. There's something in ancient Greek called a particle. And these particles basically tell you the relations between previous sentences and the sentence that you are working on. They will tell you where you are within the entire structure of the written word. And by the way, you don't need to see a verb, people, until 8 lines later. You can keep all of this juggling. How are
Yeah.
they able? The first time I was sitting in Homer and I was reading to it, I was like, wait a minute, that one thought, that one sentence, we would say, was 8 lines long.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right? How did we keep track of, oh, look at the particles and they're setting things up in the people's brains that are using it, that
And
they can string out this music. It's not bar 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 English bar 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 bar.
don't say, I have a part of me that's a linguist. Please don't say that because that part of me is hurt. The other part of me, the philologist, agrees with you. So I'm like, I have two personalities. But you're absolutely. See, Bruno, what I was talking about before, because Bruno asked me about the differences in philology and linguistics, and I said, I'm
Yes.
dual.
Yes. Elaborate a bit, Evina, please, on that. I know you told us the difference, about just as it seems like between you two, obviously, you understand more what you mean when you say why a linguist and a philologist are like in kind of different two departments. Can you explain to us a bit, Evina, just not?
Yeah, I'll also I'll also add to what Ammon said that it was so much denser in Greek. So a good example of that is that I bet that's in every language that when you get like um, a book, edited book of ancient Greek texts with the translation to another language, almost always, please, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have a lot more experience than that. The ancient Greek text is like half page, and the translation next to it is like a full page and a half. And you're like, wait, isn't that line by line? Also, it's multiple sentences. So the period in ancient Greek has like a main verb, but on that main verb, we have many ideas hanging from it that in a modern language can only be explained by multiple periods because you cannot follow up such a long sentence. So it's exactly what you said before, right?
Yes, it's not a dance, right? In those languages, it's not a dance anymore. In the Greek, it's a dance, and you're taking in the whole thing in your mind at once. I had a
Memorization, the use of brain. They were
yes,
memorizing thousands of verses to to perform the Homeric epics.
yes,
So
yeah, and
why
that's
wouldn't they be able to hold five tabs at the same time until they get to the verb?
correct, correct. And that's why when you mentioned that when you get a translation, it's always longer. The translation is longer than the
Hilarious.
original. It's because the people, and that's completely standard, the people are struggling to be able to take a complexity and bring it into an in one case English, right? Into an English form. So they have to line up these. Oh God, it's awful, people. It's awful. You don't you can take this from an understanding. If you really want it in perspective, think of one word. We have oistromania in ancient Greek, which is this craziness caused by the sting of the gadfly. Okay, right? Listen to how much English I had to put into that,
For
right?
that word.
Whereas that one word is capturing that concept, which none of us in English have thought about. What does, when you get bitten, you know, you're the horse out in the field, and when you get bitten by that gadfly, what is the response that you have in your spirit to that gadfly? You have the oistromania. How is that oistromania? How is that exactly what the spirit of oracular prophecy produces? Why are the prophets, the oracles, why are those dancers in states of oistromania? And how is it that the Christos, that application of a drug leads to oistromania? How is it that you cannot express these concepts except in a whole bunch of English words?
Can
And
I jump in there because you gave me the amazing example to use to answer the question of Bruno about the linguist and the philologist. So a philologist is exactly what you say, admires and respects that idea that with one word you can describe a whole concept. Maybe a linguist will say, yes, but you can still express it. It doesn't matter if it is one word of a whole phrase. Does that make sense, Bruno? So it's not that you
Yes,
don't
yes.
respect the language, but you say, well, you can still say it in other words in another language.
Mm. And
If that makes sense.
yes, 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 absolutely. It's
Sorry,
more like it's it's like, but does the actual word philology implies in his actual meaning of it, but what it will mean in Greek philologist, because we like it's the logos and philo, I guess, and I guess the whole concept implies a relationship with the logos,
with
let's say.
language. Yeah.
So
Well,
from maybe from
go.
a linguist, it will be more about, I don't know how to explain it, but maybe there is a word in Greek or ancient Greek for what will be a linguist, and it will be a linguist back then than a philologist.
Let me answer that one by saying what you need to read are the people who study and write about the grammata. That's what we're really dealing with, right? You have all of these ancient works of ancient Greeks writing about their own language. They're writing about how to use it. Like, where do you think the first the lexicon, the concept of a lexicon comes from those Greeks, right? Who are who are creating this understanding, this philology, you would call it, how the language is working, how the words are working. And my God, man, um, in a lexicon, oh God, I'll think of his name in a second, but in one of our lexica, Hesychius, it is Hesychius, I think it is. He talks about he gives us a lexicon of the unusual words in Greek, and in Alpha alone, there's like 10,000 entries. So that's 10,000 just unusual words defined. And remember, when he's defining the word, he has to come up with a way to define it. So it's like an exercise. The grammarians are the source of really this. It's like the science of the language, and it's really when you talk about linguistics, it's being pioneered by these Greeks. I mean, it's just it's the way it is. It's gorgeous.
It's just, Bruno, that when we started talking about the ancient times, we were not using the word grammatistis, grammarian, or philologist at all. We were using mostly the word scholars, maybe. So we were replacing that word in Greek. So that's why we can't trace back to what they really were, grammarians. So that is why we're disconnected. That's why probably they ask Ammon or me, what is it that you do? What does that mean? Philologist, what is it? Are you a philosopher? Well, I take it sometimes because they're thought to be smart. So, well, depending on the context, sometimes I say yes, sometimes no.
Yeah, sometimes there's right. We
I'm a
used to.
philosopher. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that was the first, and with the first thing that we published with Ammon. The first question I had was, "What is
What
philology?"
happened?
Yeah, because it's like not many people actually know.
You know what? I would like to define it now as that spark that we just saw, right? What is the tragedy? Why are we drawn to tragedy? There is something in it that feeds us. That there's a reason they're always invoking the muse. Greek speakers. I don't care where they're from in antiquity, and they're from all over the place. There is something that Greek speakers have with this notion of that invocation of the muse, right? You really don't understand it. People think, oh, it's just a nice thing to start off a song. You pray to a muse, an invisible being, to show you the reality. People don't understand the sophisticated mechanics that are behind it, because who are those muses? They're the daughters of memory, right? The daughters of memory. And everything that these poets, remember, all of this written stuff is coming, like, where's it coming from? Look at the early lyric poets, man, right? Look at Homer. These are songs. These are kitharodes. This is language that is accompanied by music. And by the way, they invented the fucking lyre. Am I wrong? Did they not invent the fucking guitar?
They do. But also, it's interesting how there are muses that inspire you to study history. because the word muse makes us think of music, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, of course, there were muses of dance, muses of song making, but there were muses that supposedly inspired you to write or to tell history or astronomy.
Yes, to inquire.
Yes,
Right, to
actually,
inquire. This is what it's all
for
about, the great inquiry.
sorry, Ammon.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, for you to know, Ammon, because we were speaking before for like an hour and a half, and we talked about this. So it's great that for us here hearing both of you talking about it, because we have been talking with you before about this. Now with Evina, this is you just met right now. So for us, it's a privilege to have you both here. Like
For me, it's a privilege to be here with them.
Evina, can I ask you, have you had much of a chance to look at any of the medical or drug stuff or any of the like weird sources like the Theriacs and stuff like that from Nicander? Have you had any sort of, has any of that kind of stuff come up in the past? Because traditionally, the reason I ask that is traditionally that stuff is not taught in at least American universities. It's
Well,
not taught in classics departments. So you kind of have to specialize. Have you come across any of that stuff along the way?
you're right. It is not taught not only in the US, but nowhere in the world, I think. Maybe you're one of the few people that have the privilege to analyze these texts. But to be honest with you, I feel privileged to have studied classics because at any moment I feel I have easy access because I understand ancient Greek. I have easy access to any text. However, I have, because at the same time, I'm working on a project, etymological project, that really, really fascinates me. It's that side of me that is a philologist, that part of me, from the dual personality that I have. So it's a project I call You Already Speak Greek, and it it explores the etymological origins and the historical development of certain words that are used in ancient Greek texts, and that have survived up until today. And these words are only taken out of the world of human emotions. So words that we use today, like melancholy or nostalgia, these are just two examples. There are so many more, euphoria and so on. And I explore what they meant in the original texts and how they have survived today, if they still have the same meaning, like nostalgia. That was not really mentioned. It was a later text that talks about nostalgia, but it was very well described, Nostos and Algos in Homer. They're very, very close there in the first verses of Odyssey, like one line below one from the other.
Yes.
But still, these concepts, how they have traveled through time and how we use them today. So in one of these explorations I took, I read a bit more of Hippocrates, and I love how the word melancholy, which is used in plural, melancholies, in his text, Air, Water, and Places, if that's translation in English.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not wrong on that in the translation. So there he speaks about the bile and how people that tend to be more, I'll say that, well, yeah, they're more prone, let's say, to have melancholies if the weather is drier during a year. So the idea is how the climate affects the human body. So I haven't really done a thorough study in all medical texts, but when it is an investigation that I need to do for a certain reason, I feel fortunate to be able to access the texts and read, obviously, the important work of many philologists that analyze these texts, and they give me an insight um, and a layer extra than the one that I would get linguistically, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't have like a long relationship with the medical text, but I'm very
Ammon,
interested in that.
sorry, Evina. Ammon, just because this is a perfect word that you choose to make an example, because we talked about this word from the perspective of Ammon. Like I don't remember when, but we talked about Ammon. Do you remember? The like the way that in the medical, like the way that they were approached in a medical way to the person that is suffering from this melancholy. Would you, from your research, Ammon, would you give us like an idea of
Really?
that?
Yeah, so right out of the Hippocratic corpus, you have the humoral, they call it humoral pathology, right? That we hear being described. And one of those imbalances that you can get is of the black bile, and that's why melancholia is the disease that affects the person who is entering into this yes, weather driven, right? Weather influences it, diet influences it, right? And uh, the Galen is so involved with the diagnosis of melancholics and the treatment of melancholics. He's got drug regimen to treat them and everything. That he writes an entire work on black bile and on melancholy. And in that work, he talks about how the black bile can also influence the eruption of plagues, right? Skin problems you can have ultimately connected to the melancholy. And how do you treat this abundance of black bile? Well, it's, through these different drugs that will affect your moistness, your dryness, or your heat and your cold. So it all comes back to one thing. And I had to translate, by the way, for my master's thesis. It was a translation of Galen's Black Bile. So I'm not pulling any of this out of my backside. These are real texts. You can go and look at them, right? So part of the black bile issue is its effects on what we would say is psychology, right? Depression. You call it. Well, they were talking about depression, right? Well, yes, kind of, but in a
Yeah,
broader
it was
picture, like
corporal still. It wasn't that of a mental state yet. It took a while. Aristotle maybe mentioned that again, the word melancholy, and it started giving it a different context. We're still talking about something that appears in the body. It took years to think of melancholy as Freud thought about it, as a
right,
type
ultimately,
of psychic, right?
right.
A type of personality, let's say.
Which is almost like, well, we couldn't quite grasp the Greek concept in its whole. So here we're going to take a little side aspect of it and say, okay, this is now we're talking about a mental process of depression, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to call that melancholy. Yeah, no, there's a whole, it has a much more, it's much more integrated. The world of ancient medicine is much more integrated with like you were saying, weather, airs, waters, places. Why is what what is the water and air the air I'm breathing and the water that I'm drinking? What does that have to do with my state of health and whether or not there's going to be an epidemic this year? Right? I mean, it's complicated, gorgeous science that I find myself reading it just having to hang on. When Galen talks about drugs, when drugs that are used in the treatment of melancholy, he talks about drugs that are used with sex problems with sexual dysfunction. It's wait a minute. Is this? I've even read. It wasn't Galen, but it was one of the I think it was a Byzantine, Paul of Aegina, maybe, who's writing about the treatment of disorders of the mind, disorders of thinking is, I guess, is what we would call it. And in that, he talks about melancholy and again, drugs that are used to treat the melancholic state. And there's an overlap between those treatments and sexual dysfunction treatments. So the material is advanced, and all you can come away from that with, at least me, I don't know, is that you're trying to use an operating system to comprehend a much more advanced system than you're capable of. And if you had these one word concepts that they come up with, that are compounds, that they've put this whole ladder of words together, the ones that usually in our dictionaries or lexica are modern English lexica, right? Or from 1850s or LSJ. Sometimes they'll just put, we don't know what this is. Like, let me ask about this one. The verb bachewo, to become Bacchic, right? What the hell does that mean? There's no, in English, when they translate that into English,
There's no little Scott that can explain it.
Can we? Well, I have an idea of what I want to ask you both, but can we just make a small?
Bruno,
Okay, yeah,
can I
please,
make a
Evina.
comment that was exactly what I was saying. It's not only the concepts that they came up with, it's this abstract phonemes that put in that order to create the word whatever, arete, paideia, call it whatever. How did you decide it's called paideia and not ABC?
right.
Like, this is the incredible thing, not only the concept, but the creation of words. And I agree in everything that you said, Ammon. We're both amazed by the same things. Sorry, Bruno.
Yeah.
That's okay. You gave me a bit of order in my mind also, because I wanted to go like, oh, let's talk about Bakewo, but which we all love. And but we were talking before, Ammon, about the pre-Socratic and Socratic idea. Like, I was obviously asking about if this was just to time frame something, and well, we are understanding that not, because I also asked you before, and Evina was telling me that there is different, obviously, ways of seeing or make philosophy or something like that. But we were in the middle of it a bit, so I guess it's connected because we are talking about these concepts, difficult to give you an idea of what is this, of what is that. And as we mentioned, the pre-Socratic way of thinking, I guess it's connected with how complex the language can get to talk about what they were talking, like a science of trying to explain what is how the earth was formed or whatever. So could we take again, Evina, from what we were talking about, this way of thinking of the pre-Socratic, and then we go into the Socratic? Can we do you remember where? Not that you don't need it to do it from the same part that we were before, like just as you want.
I was just talking, I'll try to remember what I said, but maybe, yeah, it was a comment that I made that, yeah, even the word pre-Socratic is not how they called themselves, obviously. It was given to them a lot later in the 19th century, maybe by Herman Diels, if I'm not wrong. So they were not calling themselves pre-Socratic, obviously, because that's not a way to define yourself. And obviously, that doesn't mean that necessarily they came chronologically before the Socratics, because some of the pre-Socratic philosophers were contemporary to Socratics. And also the idea that we use pre-Socratic, as I said before to Bruno, to me, is like, say, I don't know, using the word Socratic to define someone else. It makes me think that it's a bit offensive to them. It makes us think of them as inferior to Socrates because they came before Socrates. Also, the word philosophers. Are they really philosophers? Yeah, they influenced philosophy in many ways, but they were not calling themselves philosophers. They were, at most, I will call them inquirers, thinkers that had a very vast, um, uh, let's say, portfolio of topics.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's a much better way to describe them as natural philosophers than philosophers because
yeah,
all of their
absolutely.
works are about the basics of nature and how the physics. You
Naturalism.
could also, you could, I mean, I'd be happy to call them physicists, as opposed to, yeah, you're right about pre-Socratic, right? Who made that up, right? Right. Yeah. Gorgeous. Harmony. One of the things they're coming up with is harmony. What do you study if you derive harmony? Like, what is harmony mathematically, and just the
In
concept? Why don't,
cosmos
yeah,
as well. Yeah.
it's mind blowing. You see, we're both the same junkies. We're smoking the same ancient dope, man. It's gorgeous. Oh God, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted, but
No,
you're
please
exactly right.
don't do that to me.
Hello, crew. Greetings from the road. I just wanted to communicate that we just opened our Stones and Serpents Patreon. Finally, we are now constantly uploading different audiovisual materials. Some are free and some are not. We are sharing SNS behind the scenes, raw footage of the current Eastern expedition, official soundtracks, and even collections of future productions like shortcuts and documentaries. Finally, I would like also to encourage all of you to become a part of the Explorer chat. It's free and gives us a good platform to engage in research. Please feel free to scout the different modalities, from free member to an Explorer membership or Territory Explorer or even a Pathfinder membership where we can co-produce and open a direct contact with the SNS production board to even create new projects and to do what we all love the most, to explore new territories. We're an independent production company and this is part of our organic growth. So we deeply appreciate your support. Thank you all. And again, greetings from the crew.
But Evina, I would love to take it from, you just said cosmos, and that was the actual word we were on it when we were speaking about.
Right.
Okay, we understand pre-Socratic. We don't care about the name of the
More
definitions
science, yeah, thinkers, inquirers.
and what they were talking about. What was the inquiry that they were doing? I know it's very broad, probably, but
Yeah.
can we?
So
Okay.
of course, so they talked about the origins of the external world. They were looking for where this world came from. The way in modern times we talked about the Big Bang, right? How did we start having air, water around us, soil? Where did that come from? And some people may say, well, that's a theological inquiry, religious one, because back then they thought that the gods would give order in the world, and its god was responsible for other parts of the world, like Demetra, for the crops. So that's where we get food from. But for the philosophers, the pre-Socratic philosophers, I'll use that term just for this podcast, the pre-Socratic philosophers, were looking for what started the world. They were looking for the seed. Was it water that started the world? Was it fire? What was it that started this world? And this is an exploration for the material principle of things, the arche, the beginning of this world. So there we have many ideas that would be called today, that would fall under the category of science, as Ammon said, right? Of course, we have some other ideas like the impermanence of the world from Heraclitus, everything flows, that he said. We have other people talking about how strange it is to think of gods as people, Xenophanes, the anthropomorphism of gods, making them look like they're anthropos, people, yeah, how they drink and eat like people do, or how they have weaknesses in their personalities, or yeah, how they act and think. Because in all the texts that we get in Homer, for example, gods are a big part of the Homer epics, and they're described as humans. So then we have the pre-Socratic philosophers questioning that. And of course, a lot more work on numbers with Pythagoras. That's where we get Pythagoras theorem in maths. We have the atomism in Democritus. We have very important work. They set, I would say, the foundations for the scientific investigation nowadays. And of course, they were the inspiration for Western philosophy, like naturalism, that everything is governed by natural rules and laws, rationalism, and other things. That's what made us give them the name of philosophers, probably. But they have done a lot of work in other aspects other than philosophy, because nowadays we think of philosophy as something different to science. So that's why I'm saying that with our modern criteria, we cannot think of philosophy and science as one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a perfect follow-up is the medicine is related in the same way. What we'd call the pre-Socratic philosophy is bleeding into creating for us questions of medicine. And well, if this is what's happening on a level that we cannot see, then how is that applying to the medicine? What are the things that we cannot see, for example, in drug action, which they used to use the word epangelia, which is very close to evangelia, right? The gospel. What is the efficacy of the drug? That's how the doctors are referring to it. What is its gospel? Right. And the basis for the doctors trying to understand how the pharmacy, what we call the pharmacy, is working, is coming from that pre-Socratic natural inquiry. And some of them are actually physicians as well. And people don't realize that, for example, probably the most brilliant of, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you just look at Pythagoras, for example, just look at Pythagoras. People think he's a mathematician. Like, what do you call it? He's a mathematician. He's a
Yeah,
philosopher. He's right. He's coming up with geometry, but nobody knows that he was a physician. Nobody knows that. I don't know how that managed to get washed out of the history. But Empedocles, same thing. These people are practicing physicians who are, we kind of look at them as like weird, magic using. They're almost like shaman kind of people. So is it fair to call them philosophers, right? Man, you're exactly right, Evina. It's us trying with our barbarian operating system, trying to reassemble something that's much more complex than we can really digest.
And Damon, okay, so if we add the ingredient of medicine also to these ideas of like this is the cosmos, where we are questioning stuff that came from before, like you were saying, Evina, and now we add this ingredient of medicine. Could we say that all of these different stuff that were just one idea of what the cosmos is, I guess, or something like that, was what was creating actually these inquiries, like in itself? Let's say what I'm trying to ask Ammon is like, you think medicine or the drug use or the physicist practice was actually making them engaging more with trying to answer these questions more than another topic that you can choose, as a human?
I can't answer why. I can't tell you why it happened, but we can show just through the literary evidence that there is some sort of renaissance, some sort of classical renaissance that's coming to us through the Greek. I mean, our Renaissance, medieval, it's just a reflection. It's a Renaissance because of that Greek original. But what I'm trying to say is that Greek original, and I think it is language bound, right? There are not other Mediterranean cultures that are outside of the Greek speaking world that are deriving these very same concepts. It's not happening. There is a spark that is happening in the Greek world, that is Greek speaking world, that is facilitating their ability to create the science, to see how all the mechanics work. So a physician, for example, we talked about Pythagoras. If Pythagoras is going around healing and he's performing purgations with drugs, and these healings affect the person's soul, what is he? Is he religious? Is he a religious figure? Is he a physician? Is he a scientist? And the answer is yes. The fact that you can't see that he can be all of those things at once is why Pythagoras is walking around telling people a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which you know for damn sure, if you were to walk up to a modern day physician and tell them to derive some geometry or calculus to they're going to tell you, oh, look, I just took the basics of what I could to get my grade and get out of basic calculus. They're not thinking as the Greek was allowing Pythagoras to think, right? There's a reason that we have this strange idea of why the Greeks could perform calculus. How could they do? Didn't they have to derive certain? No. It's coming through the language itself. I have a collection of Greek mathematical works, right? And in those Greek mathematical works, basic calculus is explained, integrals is explained, not with conceptual images, not with calculations, but with words. It's almost as if the Greek gave the world a superior ability to deconstruct the world and then reconstruct it in the form of these visions of tragedy and all of these things like that. Because we're talking about pre-Socratics and the medicine and the wisdom, the science that's in it. But remember, this is all, when we get to the stage, we're in the same place, because the stage in Athens is a religious operation where the public is purged, right? We're performing sacrifices of incense. We're burning incense. We're entering into that, right? Again, is it medical? Is it theatrical? Right? Yes. The answer is yes. And it's my opinion. Evina, you chime in, tell me what you think, but it's my opinion that it's the language that's driving that reality. Let me give you one more example. With Aeschylus, when we have the population of a city that's being oppressed somehow with what you and I would call bad news, what they do is they create sacrifice of incense that they have specifically prepared with Christing, the process of Christing. It's very specific. In order to affect the population as a whole, they're fumigating the city is in order to allow them to react to bad news. And my question is, at what level are these people operating that they have no distinction between when we go to Sunday to our church and we sit in our church and we make our signs and we take our communion? That has nothing to do with hospital. It has nothing to do with the practice of medicine. But in antiquity, it is everything. A purgation, whether it's your purgation for your crimes, right? Whatever those are, your moral failures, a purgation of that in an assembly, a religious assembly, is a theater. That is a doctor's visit right? Those purgations that Galen is writing about, where do you think they're getting all that knowledge from? Why is he going to the priestess of Artemis on Limnos to get 20,000 pills, or how many ever thousand pills it was, of her drug to take to prescribe to the people of Rome? Why are they using a religious drug on people in Rome? Because it's not religious. That oracle, that priestess, she's functioning in multi realms at once, right? All the knowledge. That's why Plutarch is talking. He's talking to a priestess to get all of this knowledge, right? To be, I don't know.
Sorry, Ammon, and sorry, Evina. I'm just a little small, because we were talking with Evina about also that the oracle, and now it connects a lot, because it's a wider view of the world, I guess, because Evina was telling us that the oracle will be highly educated from even 0 years. You will be prepared for it. Nothing was above it, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, the word of the oracle was very important and respected by everyone. Yeah.
So I guess it relates with medicine also. So the oracle will, if you were giving this example, Ammon, about Galen, we're talking about another time frame, I guess now, but Galen was going to Lemnos to take some prescription or some drugs or some medicines to bring to Rome that were being made. This priestess was doing it. So we can see again how this religious stuff will be related with medicine also.
Yeah, this priestess, hey, hang on, this priestess is not actually out there doing it. She has an army of people that she oversees in the process of collecting and forming the final product, which is called the Limnian seal. Everybody in the fucking Mediterranean knows about it. And it's used in multiple prescriptions. So that's why Galen goes and gets thousands of Limnian seals. And that seal is a reference to her own image that is branded on the trochiskoi, these little pills that they make. And that image is impressed on it. So you can know, oh, this is true Limnian, right? It's Limnian. They call it Limnian earth is the street name. You've got to get some Limnian earth. And that priestess is overseeing an operation that's a very large, sophisticated operation that Galen can go and pick up thousands of these pills. Remember, nobody else can make this stuff. The knowledge of it is preserved with that priesthood.
So it will be like she has the knowledge, and the people is working through that knowledge that she has because of she's education.
Just like processing of the purple, right? There's all sorts of people involved in processing it. So yeah, it's an operation.
Okay. And so I have this idea, if both of you don't mind, which is like we talked a bit at the beginning, Evina, but we left it for the end. We said to us the meaning of the word or concept even, or figure or title, I don't know, of Medusa. And you told us it was protector or guardian or something like that. Can we open this discussion about this Medusa idea with what you were saying at the beginning, Evina, and then we chat about, please.
So yeah, well, it was a different context we were talking about. That's an interesting idea that Ammon mentioned as well. I think it runs through philology as a concept. The people that are amazed by philology, how many times in Greek texts, I'll call them texts, it can be anything, prose, poetry, whatever, we have heroes, protagonists of myths called in certain names that etymologically describe how these heroes are. So Medusa, so there my question was, and still a question, and Ammon, you're welcome to answer it. Is it the chicken that does the egg, or the hen comes from the egg? How do we decide that that lady, Medusa, is going to be called Medusa, which means the guardian of the Temple of Athena, of many other ideas, feminist included ideas of that could be used as interpretation of that myth of Medusa? Do we put that name later, or because of the name we get inspired for the myth? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
It does, and I wish I knew. I wish I
Yeah,
knew,
me
and I'm
too.
such a
That's what I said.
I'm such a careful classicist that I'm perfectly happy to think about which came first, the chicken or the egg in that case. But at the same time, I'm limited. I know unless I find an ancient source, like a grammarian who says, and I haven't, I've read lots of grammarians and I haven't seen it. I can go look for it now, though, see if we can dredge something up. But yeah, why do you call Hermes the Medusa? Why is he the one who's under in a certain passage is characterizes that one who brings the safety of the government, that one who brings the safety of the ruling powers. I mean, that one who's really driving those Medusae that end up really driving temple activity. When they say I read a Greek source, and forgive me, I've read so many Greek sources, I've forgotten more than I've read. I've forgotten more than most people have read, I should say. A Greek source was, and maybe you'll recognize this, Evina. A Greek source said dragons and wolves are the guardians of the temples, the ones who really are involved with whatever the temple is doing, and however it's processing, however it's functioning, whatever pragmata it's producing, right? It's praxis. And when I read that, I was like, oh shit. So all those times I've seen those references to the wolves at this temple, wolves associated with the temple. Why are they using wolf iconography? Oh God, it just came flooding to me. So in the Medusa chicken and egg, was there a priestess of the temple of Athena? That's what we have. We have a priestess of the temple of Athena who was murdered in different ways, murdered, whatever you can put it. She's the origin of that thing, that hideous skin of Zeus's nurse, who's a woman, by the way. That skin has the head of that Medusa affixed to it. And that's the image that we are using as a defense, we who worship the Virgin on the hill. I mean, which came first? Did that priestess come first? Or did the idea that we have in Mother Greek of what a priest, what that priestess would be doing, how she would be functioning? Right. I think it's the same thing in Maya. If you look at the name for Maya in Greek, it really just means to act as a midwife. So which came first, the midwife? And they called her Maya. Maybe that was her name, right? Oh, God.
I had the same question, Bruno. I was telling you the same things before. This is the magic of ancient Greek. What comes first, the concept or the name? Well, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We're lucky to have both the concept and the name of whatever it is. But I can't be calm unless I know the actual truth, what came first. So that's, I think, a drive for many philologists, if I'm not wrong. All of it comes down to the language. Why did we put that name? When did we come up with that name? The chicken and the egg thing you were saying, Ammon.
I think
Absolutely.
I think what you said about English and the project you're working on, your modern English or other modern languages. Look, you've got to look back to Mother Greek because you mentioned euphoria, and that is such a perfect example. Um, Ecstasy, I think, is another good example. Imagine they were able
It's
to
in the
come up with,
list.
imagine they were able to coin and come up with a concept that you and I think of ecstatic, except it's bigger. It's not exactly what you and I think of it. It's bigger in antiquity. It's associated with cult activity. It's associated with a process of entering into communication with a divinity. Right? Right. When you and I say, now you and I sit around and we're like ecstasy. Well, that's a specific drug, but yeah, it kind of means this like place where you can go on a drug. Do you see how oh God, isn't that the dope? That's the dope.
I agree. We're like the nerd association here.
You
Absolutely.
should totally continue that project. You should write something. You should do some computer analysis on it or something using all your linguistic training. You know what I mean? Because you've got the linguistics really gives you the mathematical kind of backing of all the language. We can sit around and as you know in classical philology and get stoned all day on the beauty, right? Your other personality wants that math and wants that very logical explanation of what's going on. And if you can show the world, are you going to show the world then that what they're speaking is like a dumbed down version of this beautiful Greek original?
Ancient Greek, in its form that we studied today, is maths. The syntax of ancient Greek is mathematical. It is connected. You cannot like ancient Greek without liking order and maths, generally speaking, maths, logic, let's call it, okay, better called as logic, not maths like 1 plus 1, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I would be very interested to continue the project. I find that many people use words today and they have no transparency to the etymology. And yeah, of course, in the case of melancholia, or melancholy, whatever you call it, in whatever pronunciation you want, it's the same. Yeah, it's changed a lot, but there are other words, other concepts that the core of them is the same. And it's beautiful for people that don't have this native ability that, because for me, it's very easy to see the etymology. Someone tells me nostalgia, and I know already what it means. The pain, the effort you need to put to go back, or the feeling of missing your home. It can be many things, right?
Right,
Like
right.
endless things. So I feel like it's a nice project, and thank you for using these words that I should continue. It's very very nice to have that support and of a fellow and a great philologist like yourself, who can at least see what my intentions are with this project.
Don't say great philologist. Oh God, don't. Nemesis, she's sitting right over there. She's gonna hear it, and I'm gonna make some giant blunder, and everybody's gonna say, "Oh God, this is what a great philologist is." No, people. One thing I need you to understand, the audience now, right? That we both understand is that Greek is so beautiful and so beautifully mathematically, geometrically, reasonably complex that every time we're in her presence, we're humbled. And our goal is to become so intimate with her that we have that constant familiarity, that constant dope that you get from the language, because it's an addiction. Once you start reading classical Greek, it gets into your system somehow. You're willing to sacrifice. You know, Evina, you could have made a lot more money as a lawyer or something. If you can do classical Greek, you could have done law. You could have, you could be making the big bucks right now. But you've had the crack, and you know that this stuff is addictive and it's gorgeous and it could change the world, right? Evina sees that you're speaking modern languages that are drawing from that gorgeous, gorgeous well, and she's going to bring that vision to the world, and that's what, she's a post-Socratic philosopher.
But what I mean also is that we have different starting points in the sense that you covered a lot more to be able to read these texts. For me, it was a lot easier because I I had this innate curiosity about etymology. Like in my free time as a kid, I was reading the dictionary. Please. I mean, that's
Oh
not normal.
God, that is
So that's
so
what I'm saying. We don't
beautiful.
have the same starting point. Yeah, I'll
That is
finish
so
quickly my
people.
homework to read the dictionary. But the point is that you had to learn a language from scratch,
Yeah,
and it's very difficult to learn ancient Greek if you don't speak modern Greek,
right.
and vice versa.
Right. No, no, you've got a
I guess.
leg up. You've got a leg up. Right. Definitely you've got a leg up. And especially if you come from bog-trotting English, right? English is not conducive, right? And you think, oh, wait a minute, English borrows so many forms. Yeah, why do you think English borrows 30% to 40% of its own native forms, right? That you think are native English words? Why is it borrowing those from Greek? Why is it doing it? Because it doesn't have the capacity. It's how my brain was set up. And you've got to sit humbly and look at the Greek and say, oh my God, if I can, I'm going to take this in. And there are times that we go to class. You know how this works. We go to class, and you can spend sometimes an entire 50-minute class on 5 lines, right? And it's not because, oh, it's Aristotle and his note style of writing is poopy. It's nothing like that. It's because it's somebody like the author of the work on the great poetess, the Bacchic poetess, starts, oh God, Lycophron. The great work by Lycophron, the Alexandra, or whatever you want to call it, that's about a prophetic Bacchic priestess, right? Cassandra. It's about her. It's her words that come out. And I swear to you, people, I swear to you, you cannot spend less than an hour on 5 lines of this thing. The entire work is that way. Why? Because Lycophron is making up vocabulary. He is creating words. Every fifth word is some goddamn unknown, never seen it, doesn't exist anywhere in any other text. It's not just the Hoppox, it's his own. He's made it. He's fine tuned a word. So, what do you have to do? You have to look at the word that he invented. You have to look at it in its context, which is way crazy esoteric and hard to understand, right? References that you don't know, people you don't know, nobody that's in this myth. Boom, he inserts a fake word, right? That's now a real word. And you have to figure out what that new creation is. And the only way to do this, I stumble all the time. The only way to do this is to be able to think in that programmed, sophisticated, rational way that they're thinking. You have to think like Lycophron in order to get to the place where his words are, right? And it's so difficult. And then you can pick up, Thucydides or somebody and just plow through it. It's just right. It's just he's not making a lot of stuff up, but it's a good historical analysis. You know what I mean, and
Mhm.
and whatnot. So realize that, and it takes a lot of boldness for classical scholars to step up, because to do this in front of a live audience, to be able to read what we call sight reading in front
Yeah.
of a live audience, isn't it, Evina? Isn't that hugely intimidating?
Yeah, and while you were talking, well, it's not entirely connected, but just to give an idea to the people listening, it's for anyone learning a foreign language, when I learned English, when I was taught Spanish, the teachers were saying, well, you need to think like an English speaker. You need to think like a Spanish speaker. So it's not just to do the direct translation. You need to live in this world to understand the pragmatics of how this language functions and what it creates. So it's to get into the mentality first and then understand, because you cannot understand if you don't see the context around the text. That's what I was thinking while you were talking.
The
Not
more
just
the
very
mo-
connected, but yeah.
the more souls that you can absorb, the more of those ancient sources you read, the more you become a part of that world. And that's exactly the way you described it is exactly how the translator's life kind of progresses. You become more of a native because, well, you see how these terms are used. You know what they do. You know how they refer to the bodily waste products now. You know how they look at them. They don't quite look at them like we do, right? You're gonna have to get into this world that's a little bit different. And the one thing that I like is Parthenos, right? You talk about the Virgin. You talk about the Virgin on the hill. What is the Parthenon, and what is all the what the hell is a virgin? We can't even translate virgin properly. We can't even translate a virgin. I'm seeing virgins here that in the text it's an age group, right? It's not has nothing to do with the status of your hymen, right? Which by the way is a
Yeah.
Greek word, right? It's a Greek word. I'll give them that, right? But the point is, the more you see what a virgin is, the more you see what something very basic and simple, like you'd think something like sweat would be simple. I can't tell you how many times I've been reading in physicians about sweat and about how did you know they view it as a pharmacological product, just like a milk that you would take from the opium poppy? Oh my
And I didn't
God.
know. And I
Yes. Yes.
didn't
So
really want to find out about that. But now it's said, it's in the air.
no, it's you produce it yourself too. And when the devil tries to attract Eve, he uses his own sweat. It's not illogical. It is an ingredient in aphrodisiacs, right? I mean, if you think of it, what is it? Are they trying to use the pheromones or something in the sweat? I mean, we don't do this kind of thing, right? So, and we don't have ichor either, right? We have
Oh, but they
blood.
survived until medieval times. Recipes in witches, yeah, absolutely. The sweat of a dragon. I mean, in tales and folk stories. Yeah, you're right.
Don't you love it? Bruno, you wanted to ask something and I've interrupted. What was the question you were going to ask?
No, I just was fascinated listening to your conversation.
Me too.
I guess this was the whole point of it. I guess, like, for you to, because it's also an experiment we're doing, which is like you just met each other, so there is topics that that's the way. We didn't prepare anything. We have two experts talking about what we are inquiring as amateurs.
One expert and one fan. Sorry. Yeah.
And so yes, well, we are approaching the 3 hours with Evina. So Evina, thank you very much. But I would like to make a question that I think I'm gonna ask all the time. I asked Ammon this like 10 times, but all the time we get the same, but a bit more with it, which is about this concept, name, God, or we don't know. Actually, that's what I'm getting, that we don't know what Bacchus is. So as last idea one of the last ideas, can we approach to this? I know this was not in the overview, Evina, but just like a spontaneous question about who is Bacchus, or what is this idea of Bacchus? Not in Roman times, like before, where the word comes from.
Can I just ask why you've talked about that multiple times? Why has that come up? Sorry, but you started your question like that, and I was like, I was expecting something different. I don't know. But can I please get an explanation on that and why Ammon has different approaches?
So with different, even in the Hellenistic collective, that was the way that I connect with Evina. I asked multiple persons because we were being invited to lectures, and this other person that was an expert on arts, classical arts, and all of this. So to all of them, we have been tracking this Bacchus, because I get the most answers that I get all the time is like, well, this is the god of wine of the Romans. And so but not all the time. Let's say when we track, let's say Roman times, Euripides, not the same time frame, isn't it? And we have the Bacchae or the Bacchantes. So we can infer as amateurs, even not asking somebody like yourself, that the word Bacchus is older than Roman times. And it seems to be also a concept that is to become Bacchic, or the word that you mentioned before, Ammon, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, because it was an adjective to describe Dionysus in that sense. That's what you mean, that it's way before Roman time.
Okay, I don't know. So, well, in this idea that I just gave, I'm not saying any affirmations. Just what is the inquiry we're doing on my side, on our side. So, what do you think about this whole mess that I just gave you as a question? Mess, sorry.
I think
Ammon first. Yeah, I want to hear what
let me
you
go.
have
Let me
to
go
say.
first, because I'm gonna throw out something that's different, but I think it's gonna answer the question, and then you can proceed mathematically to do it the right way. The two things that you talked about, Euripides, and then later a Roman Bacchus, right? What do the two have in common? Bacchus is the power that's coming into the city to fucking disrupt things, right? It's going to cause problems, and it's going to cause people to do things that are out of their normal daily activities. What are these things? The women are going to go up into the mountains, and they're going to be performing rites, and there are murders that are associated with. We have accounts of women coming into towns and taking the children. Like, what the hell, man? It looks like they're taking kids captive. They do
Anarchy, chaos.
right. They're
Yeah.
causing, and these are women who are free and slaves, right? We see that in the same situation in the Greek speaking world that we do in the Latin speaking world. The Romans come right up against it with a Bacchic group of women who create a conspiracy. They go out and arrest them and kill them. And one of the things that Livy tells us, one of the reasons they took them, that they arrested them, was based on the drugs that they had that were used in Bacchic ritual. That's in our historians. So the similarity, if you want to know what Bacchilwo, I am Bacchic, what that means, because that's how they're translated in the LSJ, to act in a Bacchic way, right? When you enter that Bacchic state, whether it's in Thebes or wherever it is, it doesn't matter where it is. Wherever it is, you're going to end up with a disruption of the government. You're going to end up with some kind of idea that people, whether they're free or slave, have the obligation to go do these rites. And it's not just anybody, right? It's everybody from slaves up to the people who are ruling, right? The rulership, all right? All of the caste of prophets, those people, right? So I think that to become Bacchic, I don't know what it means, but I can see that it always ends up in some kind of conflict, like some, war kind of situation. Is that why our longest epic on Bacchus by Nonus, is that why it's about this massive war between the Greek speaking world and the Indian world? Is that why? Right? Who we call Indians because of the Greek? Right? I mean, it's weird. It's like the influence of the culture that comes from Mother Greek is dominating the world. I mean, it's weird. Okay, that was my answer. Now,
No, but it's
go
very
ahead.
interesting that you mentioned the conflict, because yeah, conflict can be in many contexts. So in that sense, where you have a well-governed city-state, and then we have the Bacchic festivals, almost called them festivals, that occur, and the absolute chaos. So this is a contradiction, a conflict between order and lack of order. And that is, in ancient Greece at least, correct me if I'm wrong, is connected directly to god Dionysus. And we have many other festivals connected to him. So is that disruption? Is that that disruption in order, that of course, yeah, it survived as a concept, as you said, in Latin as well. But yeah, it doesn't come from Latin. We already have Bacchic rites way before
Right,
about the
exactly.
I'm
existence of
sorry.
Latin.
Yes, perfect. I guess that was what my question was going. Like,
No, I agree
I don't know, it's a
100%.
fascination with time frames. I don't know why, but it gives you a
I
bit of
I think
order.
I
But
think what Evina just said.
Mhm.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. I think what Evina
Just go.
just said is so important. It's so important because remember, Bruno, we were talking about how the theater is purging the population. If you don't bring in Dionysus, you get, in order to purge your population, you get a Bacchic reaction. You get a some kind of violent Bacchic ecstasy that takes things over. It's almost like, okay, you can do this naturally, and
Yeah,
you can set up this orchestra, right? You can set up so that the people, while the priest of Dionysus is sitting there right in the middle of everybody can experience this purgation. Is that what it means to be Bacchic? Is that what? Yeah, and the Romans just got to a point where that phenomenon, that natural phenomenon of that Bacchic revolt kicks in. When you're not bringing that Dionysiac purification through theater or through whatever venue, medium, then you're going to get a Bacchic kickback. The reason I'm really excited about saying this is because they have this thing called third time, so that you're Bacchic third time. So one of the big Bacchic festivals is every third year, right? It's every third. Why are they doing it? The oracle switches from an Apollonian oracle to a Bacchic oracle. And it just makes me think, is there some kind of sacred, physics, math going on here? I mean, the center, we're trying to figure out what is it to become Bacchic, right? And you mention the theaters, and all of a sudden you realize, oh God, it is religion, medicine, it is government, it is the same thing. What if
yeah,
we've been
all
looking at
comes
it?
back to what you said before. Yeah, absolutely. It's connected. Sorry, I interrupted you, but it's exactly the essence of what we talked about before, medicine and theater and religion, religious practices today. What are they today? What were they back then? So it's really the root of what you're saying, 100%.
Okay, so we know that comes from before Roman times. Okay, Dionysus, and in text, like in evidence, um, can we trace this back like to Bronze Age, even like this Bacchic idea?
I would say because it's in linear B, right? You've got Dionysos, right? Dionysus. You've got that in linear B already. So uh, I would say the practice itself, the purgation itself, has to be at least as old as you see the entrance of the god. Maybe it was there were variations of the practice. Like, why is it that Heracles has these sacred temples that he's practicing something in, where Medea is the only one allowed, where we have sources that say Medea is the only one allowed into the actual observation of the rite, right? We we have almost from the beginning, the late Bronze Age, we have corruptions of mysteries. We have like alterations or like, little offshoots of mysteries. And I don't think we really understand. If this is the world, the Mycenaean world that is really, it's the oldest Greek that we've got, right? It's the oldest Greek that we've got. And if it is still preserving the name itself, Dionysus, I don't know.
It goes way back, yeah, because it's not just mentioning Euripides, it's something a lot older, as you said, because of what we have in the writings. And there are many mysteries, just to make a very general comment, and I really like the project you're working on, Bruno, with your team, because it looks into these kind of questions that are a lot broader than texts. You pose questions that are really in the heart of the ancient Greek world. How do we get these ideas? Where do they come from? What were the people thinking about these ideas back then? Did they know that Dionysus was as old as at least the writings that include their name? There are so many questions around it. So that's why I felt like it's a wonderful project, and it's a great opportunity to be able to talk about these things with Ammon. And most of all, it's great that you guys pose these questions in your project. And I feel very lucky to have been invited today here and to have the opportunity to talk about these things and of course meet Ammon. That was like a great conversation. And I hope we didn't, I'm not sure if we were in our own bubble, philological bubble, or if things were actually understood, because we got excited many times about things. But I really hope they're understood by someone that has an interest, let's say, in philology, and they want to learn more about it and get like an introduction into this world. I really hope things were understood and we're not like
Evina,
ecstatic to use the word.
yes. Well, thank you very much to come here and talk with us. What you were just saying, yeah, that's exactly why we are on the side of our documentary that we are working on, at least we have been working for almost a year now, and we are seeing like we have a whole, at least this whole year. And but we decided to make this side parallel project of this history inquiry that we took from a quote that Ammon said once. I stole it and I put that on my on the name of this project. That the whole idea is that. So we did 4 chapters, 4 volumes with Ammon, introducing people from the beginning, what philology is, and we went into a bunch of different topics. And now this is an expansion of this idea. That is, we are so grateful that both of you to be able to do this experiment and to have 2 persons that know what they are talking about, giving us even more points of view about all of these questions. That's why I repeat the question, We have been following Bacchus since the beginning, so I keep doing it, and all the time we get different stuff, not different. I mean, if I put a clip of everything about Bacchus makes sense, I will show for both of you. Like we have different ways that you can approach it, but it's always pointing to somewhere, and a figure is appearing. So that's why I keep asking about this last question I just did to both of you. And Ammon, thank you very much to come here again. And Ammon is part of our project since the beginning. So it's been like a key figure in the whole Stones and Serpents universe. And now with you, Evina, it's exactly what we wanted, to keep pushing this forward for not just experts hear about this. I mean, it's amazing. We have a lot of people interested here in Chile now, that before we started with this, nobody was even watching anything of what we were doing. But now, with the congregation of Ammon's channel, they are very into it. They are studying the ancient Greek to go into the source, and for you to see for yourself. And so that's where we're trying to push forward also with the project of Stones and Serpents. So we're so grateful that both of you are here now. Thank you so much, Evina.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you, Evina. And I'm going to mention you on Lady Babylon because I love it when I run into another dopehead and you've seen this stuff and the project that you're working on. I think that's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I'm honored to be able to interact with you like this. Thank you. And Bruno, well done, sir. Ride, well done.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you both again.